Player one. Time. Player two. Level one.
Good evening. It is Monday. It is 8 o'clock. It is time for the Total Evercade Podcast. We are on episode 9. Episode 9.
It's
Getting
incredible.
there. It's hurtling towards episode 10. That's a milestone. I like milestone numbers. So episode 10 is going to be a good number. Hopefully, we'll be able to get a very special guest on for episode 10. And we'll sort of see how that works, unless Ryan's going to tell me any differently now.
No, all I was going to say is apologies to people expecting special guests this evening. They had to postpone at quite short notice, but we are hopeful that they will be here for episode 10.
Episode 10. So mark that in the calendars. 2 weeks' time, we will make that work. Okay, there is a lot of people in the chat already. We have got a new name that I've not seen, Archive Gig Footage SJK. Good evening. How are we doing? We've got Mr. Nicholas. Hello there, sir. We've got Nick Craddock. Good evening, sir. Mr. Rob Taylor. Always good to see you, Mr. Rob Taylor. We've got Middle-Aged Gamer Guy. Thank you so much for joining. We have got Mr. Rob Essex, Retro Gamer. And Joe, how are you guys doing? I hope you're both well. Congratulations. Rob and Joe from Essex Retro Gamer got married recently. They've had a wonderful honeymoon. So I hope you guys are doing well.
You think a week ago he was probably on his honeymoon, and now today he's watching this. So, you know, he'd probably be rather at home watching this than on his phone.
Wouldn't he always? We have got Dan in the house. We've got Nathan Foster. We have got Phantom Fiction from across the pond. Good evening, sir. We have got Mr. Bricks, if I can get my mouse to work properly. We've got Mr. Bricks. We've got Chris H. Yes, it is sad that Dorbs has gone, but he has, yes, he's drawn his line in the sand.
He will be lurking somewhere.
But yes, much love to Dorbs. We've got Mr. Harry in the house. We've got lots of people in there tonight. So welcome, everybody. You are all more than welcome to join us this evening. So I guess kicking everything off as we do every week. Latest news and what have we been playing? So let's go to Derek first. Derek, I hope you are well. And what have you been playing?
Yeah, I'm awesome. Thank you. Main sort of thing of the week has been 40 Winks. I'm absolutely hooked. As I explained before, I had this on the PlayStation and I'm a huge fan of the game.
Mhm.
There's so much to collect and do. And I especially love the little boxes, the little Jack-in-the-Box boxes that you get in and they transform you into all sorts of different characters, from jesters, ninjas, or even a little space robot who... jumps out of the box and yells, "Time for Benny Buys!" And he's got a rocket pack on his back, just like Buzz Lightyear. And yeah, you can get to some of those higher platforms that you otherwise couldn't reach. So yeah, I've been having such a fantastic time on that. It also breaks things up a little bit. You have some races with various characters. You race a witch in the first one and a shark in the second one. I will say to anybody playing it that might have had a little bit of a struggle with the shark, there's a couple of noticeable shortcuts. If you use them, you'll beat him hands down. I had loads of time left in mine. I'd almost lapped him. So, yeah, do use those shortcuts.
Excellent. We can see in the chat there, Mr. Nick Craddock is playing 40 Winks. Mr. Chris H as well. 40 Winks is good. So I don't think you're alone there in the 40 Winks category. It's definitely one of those games that when I get round to picking up the car, it's going to be one of those games. It almost like surmises the PlayStation 1 really by just looking at it. When everything went, it's got to be 3D. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. Mr. Ryan, what have you been playing recently?
Well, I was going to start 40 Winks, but I just never got time over the weekend. A combination of going out and life just generally getting in the way. I feel it's one of those games that I need to dedicate a bit more time to. It's not necessarily one that you can just pick up and play like some of the other games on Evercade. But what I have been playing, I watched Crazy Burger's worst video or worst games on Evercade video the other day, and he mentioned Almost Hero on the Mega Cats Studio One
I love that.
collection. So I thought, right, is it as bad as what I remember? And that game is hard as nails. It's so difficult. It's a top hat. I don't know if you're nodding in your head because you don't agree with me and you've completed it, but it's just so difficult. You collect coins. Well, I assume they're coins, but it's just hard. I get killed within about a minute, 2 minutes. Hit detection's really off. Yeah, it looks nice and it should be such a good game, but it's just so difficult. I assume it's a two-player game, so I'd like to give that a go. Maybe that might make it a little bit easier playing it with someone else. But because I had Mega Cat Studio 1 in, I went back to Old Towers, which I think personally is one of the best games on the Evercade. Absolutely superb. Really enjoy that game. My 9-year-old daughter enjoys that as well, and and she's playing Nintendo Switch games, and that shows you that game does hold up even to a younger generation. Went back and revisited Tanza as well. I'm still as bad as that as what I always am.
That is a tough as nails game. That one.
It is tough, but it's so well made, and graphically, soundtrack wise, very good game. And I remember probably like 2 or 3 years ago, didn't Evercade run a competition to see who could get the high score on Tanza, and there was some glitch in it, and someone got like 9.9 billion or something because they were just spamming. So I seem to recall something happened that they were just able to spam it. And also, I went back and I do really enjoy Creepy Brawlers, but I can't beat the woman with the knife the second time round. I just can't. I've watched people play online and I tried to follow that pattern to defeat her, but I just can't do it. So any hints or tips would be greatly appreciated. I see obsolete worlds, but Coffee Crisis is dire. Again, it looks good, but I didn't play it recently, but I know the hit detection in that game isn't great. But it does look nice. But it's just let down by the hit detection. I think that game could have been so much better than what it actually is. So yeah, that's what I have been playing.
Excellent. People in the chat, if you've been playing some Evercade as well over the last couple of weeks, stick in the chat what you've been playing there. It'd be good to hear what you're up to. Also, if you've got any questions that you would like either us or Derek to answer, or just some purely speculative, fun type questions, get them in the chat, and we will stick a little star on them. Because there's a couple that have come up in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end, and we'll have some fun with those as well. So for me, I got to play a little bit of Team 17 at work the other week with Ryan. Didn't get it for Father's Day, but I did get a very cool mug, which I'm always in for. I love mugs, so I got a very cool mug for my kids. So I'm dead happy.
Was it the Evercade travel mug?
Yeah, the travel mug. Come on.
it wasn't. I wasn't. It's in the font of Super Mario, and it says Super Daddy-O, and then it's got my kids' names under all the little 3 mushrooms. So I'm dead happy with that. But yeah, in terms of Evercade, I have been playing. I went back over Xenocrisis because that is possibly one of my all-time favorites, if not my favorite on the Evercade. And after realizing for a very long time that there were different difficulty modes and that I'd been playing the whole thing on the hardest difficulty setting forever, lowered that difficulty, and there we go. Hey, I've managed to beat the game finally. So there we go. I now just need to get really good at it and start smashing that harder difficulty. Managed to put a little bit more into Owl's Awakening. I'm still sort of chipping away at that slowly. I enjoy sort of doing a little bit, moving forward, and then kind of saving, coming back to that a little bit. And then ahead of one of the discussions that we were going to talk about later today as well, I have gone back over some of the Technos games as well on the Collection 1. So we will get to that a little bit later on. So I have had quite a lot of Evercade this last couple of weeks. It's been good fun. Very enjoyable. Very enjoyable. Okie dokie. So let's jump over to latest news. So as we said before we went on, it's a little bit dry in terms of news. Nothing super groundbreaking, but there are a couple of little tidbits that we can discuss. The first one, let's go with, there is a new hidden game that has been found with the dual cart system on the Evercade VS. If anybody wants to have the pleasure of finding that without knowledge, just block your ears for the next, I don't know, couple of seconds, couple of minutes, whatever it is. I will let one of you two run with it, because I think this is dead cool. I think there's, in terms of secret games, this is a cool one, and this is a very cool way to get it as well. So I'll let one of you, let Derek, let you run with it. How do people access the new secret game?
Okay, well, what you'll need to do is you need to pop Worms in and Team 17. So obviously the two Team 17 collections. I'm a massive Worms fan anyway. Favorite one obviously being Worms Armageddon. But I know a lot of people were a little bit disappointed when the Worms collection came out that it was the Mega Drive version of Worms, and perhaps not something like the Amiga version. Well, you need not worry, because the Amiga version of Worms Director's Cut is on there when you pop both those carts in. And I've got to say, it's a lot of fun, and I've certainly had a really good blast on it. And I've arranged for some friends to come over later in the week so we can have some exploding sheep sessions and and just have a brilliant time on it, because it is a fantastic game. And also it just gives you that little bit extra into the Worms world. And I think it was an ideal one myself. I mean, obviously you could look at Worms 2, but I think that's big enough that you could perhaps put that on a future Team 17 collection, possibly. So, yeah, definitely. The Director's Cut was the way to go. And I don't think they could have picked a better version than the Amiga version, to be honest. So, yeah, I'm really pleased.
Yeah, I am all in agreement with that. Ryan's come off mute, so I'll let him dive in on that if he had some bits to say before I gush about Worms Director's Cut.
No, all I was going to say, Worms is definitely a game to play with friends. It's not so fun playing it by yourself, but we, like Ollie and a few of the other RGR people, we've played it the last couple of Christmases, haven't we? When we've had the Evercade VS out, we always seem to gravitate towards Worms Armageddon.
You do?
And we spend like quite a bit of time laughing at Tim whilst we play that, to be honest. It's because he's so good, isn't he? He does all the bungee ropes and everything, and it's like, no, I'm not having that. Let's just go all out war against Tim. So it's Tim against like 12 worms, basically.
And sometimes he prevails.
He does. He's very good.
Sometimes he prevails. Good. Yeah. No, I agree. Worms is best played with friends. And probably my favourite Worms, and it is nostalgia goggles, but my favourite Worms is Worms Director's Cut. My friend had the original Worms and then got the add-on, which is Director's Cut for the PC. That is the Worms that I put the most amount of time into. So I've got a huge amount of love for that particular version of Worms. I know Worms Armageddon is technically a better game. It's better animated and everything like that, but I can't let Worms Director's Cut go. So when I saw that was a secret game, it's another reason to just get Team 17 cartridge as quickly as possible, because I have the Worms cart there, courtesy of Ryan, which is very grateful. You know, I need it. I think I need it now or yesterday, really. So we can get on the Worms Director's Cut. So there we go. A new hidden game has been found, and then we'll get to sort of talking about it in a minute. But the other news is there is a new game of the month, which I believe I've written this down right, is Big Too Small. Okay, so we will get to chat about Big Too Small in just a moment. And the last piece of news is there is some firmware update for your Evercade VS. Some people have been having a couple of issues with the new update. So if you have the Commodore or C64 Collection 1, Is that right? 64 Collection 1 or Collection 2?
I want to say it's Collection 1 that
Okay.
people have been having issues with. It's not been loading, basically.
Yeah. So if you do have C64 Collection 1 and haven't done the latest firmware update, maybe hold fire for the minute. It could be worth it, just especially if you're playing certain games on that cart at the moment. Yeah, Obsolete Worlds just confirmed it there, C64 1. So just while they iron out the issue that it is having with that cart, I'd maybe hold fire. I don't have the C64 collection, so I will probably do the update and just have everything lovely and up to date.
Depends what you prefer, doesn't it? Worms Director's Cut or those 5 games on the C64 collection. Personally, I'd rather have Worms Director's Cut. But,
yeah, I agree.
Obsolete World, I know he enjoys C64, so it's, you need to weigh it up. But regardless, it shouldn't be, firmware update shouldn't be stopping cartridges working.
No.
Mm-hmm.
No, they should have tested that enough, to be honest.
So yeah, hopefully they'll get that sorted out. Yeah, I'm kind of a Rob. It's not a cart for me, but it should be, because Derek does talk lovingly about the C64, and to be fair, I think Derek could sell snow to an Eskimo. So he has made me want to dive in on those C64 carts. So yeah, do need to dive in on that. Just jumping in there, Mr. Goldtooth. What is up, Mr. Goldtooth? Wonderful to see you in the house this evening. Okie dokie. Let us jump to then game of the month. Big, too small. Almost want to say it sort of like Fast and Furious. Too big, too small. But it's okay.
That's
So
cool.
it is, yeah. Too big, too small. Oh, we're loading it up here. Okay, so this is Game of the Month, and Derek, I shall let you explain to the wonderful people of the internet what Big Too Small is.
Okay, well, Big Too Small is basically a puzzle game. You take the role of 3 animals, as you can probably see throughout. Obviously, you've got a goat, a mouse, and an elephant. And the aim is to use as least moves as possible to put them on their favoured fruit. So in the case of the goat, you want to put him on the apple. You want to put the mouse on the cheese and the elephant on the peanuts. I must just stress, if you'd like to see the ending on this game, you must get a star on every one. So be looking to do it in the minimum amount of moves possible. Some of them, a lot of the time, I either cracked them straight away, or I found that I overthought them. And if you sort of put yourself more in the mind of a child, then you'll crack it a lot simpler than what it is. Because some of them, when you actually do it, you think, oh yeah, actually I could have done that in like 20 moves. But at the time, you're sort of experimenting and trying it out. And if you want to get it, it's on Game Boy. So there's a Game Boy case. Or if you want to get it, it's on N64 as well.
Oh, he's just...
So it's also on Dreamcast, which is not about, but it's also available on Dreamcast. But as I say, you can visit Retroroo's website and you can buy them there. I've no idea on what they would cost. But if it is a game for you and you can't wait until next February, then obviously there's a chance to support a physical option. But as I say, it's... there's lots of games Retroroo has at the moment. There's one called Ellen the Crystal Wars, which I would have preferred as opposed to this one, which was previously a Dune game that he acquired and then obviously finished off. I would have perhaps preferred that to this puzzle game, but perhaps that'll come later in the collection. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay. Ryan, how are you finding Big Too Small?
I don't particularly like it. If you just saw the screen then, I was just Googling the fox, the grain, and the farmer, is it? And the chicken. That's what it reminds me of. Do you know the puzzle where they're all on one side of the river and you need to get them across? And it's just levels of that over and over again. And that's what it just reminds me of. And yeah, I don't... It's okay graphically, it's nice. but it's quite a simple game. There's
Mhm.
better games like Donut Dodo is miles away from it. I would say that was like a fun arcade type game, whereas this is a game that my mum would play in like Take a Break magazine or something if there were some puzzles sort of drawn out for that's kind of what it is to me. But I know some people enjoy it. It's just not my type of game. So I'm always going to be slightly down on it because I'm not a great fan of puzzle games. That's why I'm not really a big fan of Mega Cat Studio 2, for example.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's all right. It looks nice. But I'm with Sir Top and Hat. I would have rather another game, I think. And if John Rue's got other games out there that are
Mhm.
more enjoyable than this one, because Quest Arrest is very good. Really enjoyed that one. So yeah, it would have been, in my opinion, it would have been nicer to see something else. But I'm sure there is a market for these type of games in the Evercade community.
Yeah, it's that having that variety, isn't it? Having that variety of games that people can kind of jump in on and that kind of thing. So as you could probably tell from the fact that I don't have the latest firmware yet, I have yet to have this on my VS to give a rundown of. I'm always one behind. I always seem to manage to play the game of the month in that closing week as we build up to the next episode, and it's a new game. What I really need to do is make sure that I'm on it for the next one, and I can sort of contribute a heck of a lot more than I can. But certainly just from seeing some gameplay, seeing a few screenshots, and obviously hearing you guys chat about it, graphically I think it looks really fun. It looks really charming. It's definitely the kind of game that I could see myself playing. Sometimes when you're I guess I'm trying to think of the best way to sort of describe it. When people play a lot of mobile games and but they just want 10 minutes of something to just sort of play in between meetings or between something or other. That's the kind of thing that I could see Big Too Small being for me. I can see that being a game that I just sort of get a little enjoyment from, maybe get to the next level, see if I can sort of beat one of my scores on it, and then that'll be my little fix. And there's definitely a place in a market for those games. Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. I'm looking forward to giving it a go and seeing what it's like for sure. But yeah, Big Too Small. What are I'm going to put
Yeah,
that comment on because that sums up quite a few games that I play. Shit, but addictive. Yes, and those, that's absolutely the things like Candy Crush and all of those King Star games. They're not great, are they? But we just keep playing them because there's just that little addictiveness about it, and that's all you need. Like Flappy Bird. Flappy Bird's terrible, yet we were all hooked on that like crack addicts for weeks. Buying old iPhones because it had Flappy Bird on it and stuff. So yeah, there's always a market for that type of thing. So yeah, interesting. Let us know in the chat if anybody else is currently playing Big Too Small. Let us know what you think of it as well. And like we said earlier, if anyone's got any questions, anything they want us to talk about, anything they want us to discuss, throw them in the chat. We'll give them a little star, and we'll get to them at the end. Anything else anybody wants to cover with Big Too Small before we move on to our reviewing an older card, a legacy card?
I will just say an interesting point actually about John Rue is that quite a long time ago, he was after a certain cancelled Super Nintendo game. Well, anyway, when he went to the company, it took over a year to negotiate the licensing of this particular game. And if you think about games that were cancelled in the Super Nintendo era, things like Killer Instinct 2, Super Shadow of the Beast, Super Jelly Boy 2, all sorts of games like that. There's a lot of big ones out there. They cancelled a couple of Batman games, if I remember rightly. And this one's quite a large one. And John Rue's actually built the game from scratch as originally it was intended to be on the Super Nintendo. And hopefully on the next show or two, I will make the reveal of what that game is. And hopefully we can get it on the Evercade because it's a big one. Yeah.
Now that is interesting.
In fact, it might be his biggest game yet. I'd say so.
For anyone that is new to the Total Evercade podcast, you'll get a feel that Derek is incredibly good at dropping these little tidbits of flavor, these little bits of information, these little nuggets that you kind of go, what? Okay, and it just sort of hooks you in. So I'm already hooked. I need to know what this is, and hopefully, like you say, on the next episode or two, we'll have something we can talk about. Ooh.
Maybe we should invite John Rue on to a future episode. That would be cool. Even though
Yes.
after I've slagged off his last 2 games in Evercade, he may not be so keen. I might have to do a bit of grovelling.
Oh,
before.
We'll have to get you to write an apology letter.
I will do. I'm sure we can. I'm sure we can work on it.
I think we should. I think it'd be good fun. Really good fun. Okay, so a few episodes ago, people asked us to start looking at legacy carts. So we're going back over some of these older cartridges, looking at them now that we're sort of much further down the line and seeing where we are. And the cartridge that we're going to look at tonight is Techno reviewed and the rising cost. So anyone in the chat, obviously, please get your opinions of these cartridges or games as well. Get your opinions in there as well, because your opinions are going to help sort of fuel the conversation as we go through. It's really good to sort of hear what you guys are thinking about these games as well. So yeah, Technos Collection 1. I very much enjoy this cartridge a lot. It is one I've gone back to quite a lot. I'm going to dive in with Ryan first off, because I'm going to look at the cost of a couple of the games on here on eBay, just to kind of give a flavour as to why it's good value.
Well, what I was going to, I don't know if it is going to be good value, because I was going to share with you the current eBay sold prices on this cartridge.
Oh no, is it a really expensive cart now?
Crazy.
What?
Here we go. Yeah.
Why?
Because they don't manufacture it anymore, so people can't get hold of it. So look,
go to sold listings. What have they sold for?
This is sold listings.
This is sold.
That is sold. Oh, it's green, isn't it?
Yeah, 90. This person is lucked out at $9.99 buy now. They've had a shocker, whoever that is. 91,
Wow.
93, 210.
210.
Yep.
Jeez.
It's crazy. 210.
Wow. There was me. I was about to sort of put the cost of Super Double Dragon just to get a Super Nintendo cart-only version of that, and it probably would be cheaper to get a cart-only version of Super Double Dragon.
It
Wow.
is selling for big money. It's a pricey Evercade cartridge, as you can see. It's averaging probably about £90, I would say.
That is insane.
Yeah, some of these, don't forget, these are the arcade ones, so just bypass those. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. I'm absolutely flabbergasted. That is absolutely bananas. Do you reckon Evercade must be aware of this, or Blaze must be aware of that?
They are, because, well, Funstock, when they were running out of supplies, they upped the cost, didn't they, to $29.99, I think, or £35.
Right.
Yeah, it's supposed to deter scalpers, but obviously if they're going for 90 quid, then paying £30 is not going to deter me from buying 20, is it? So
no,
that is absolutely insane. I'm genuinely shocked by that, because I always thought the Evercade was, it had a certain collectability about it, and you know, it's got. I'm going to use the word because I love this word. It's got a little quirky vibe about it. It's got a quirky feel about it. It's definitely made by a sort of a grassroots company. It's not someone that's come in and you know, angel invested, you know, millions of dollars into a particular product. It's just been built up by some people who love stuff, love games, love retro games specifically, and love physical media, cartridge based systems. So I always thought maybe it will get a bit collectible, but it's not going to be a I need to have this cartridge in my collection type thing. I'm wrong.
Yeah, in the chat, Obsolete World has basically said take those prices with a pinch of salt because they might be inflated by scalpers trying to
Yeah.
sell them. But I do know someone who has sold their Techno cartridge genuinely for over £100.
Yeah, I know several people that paid actually more than 210. So yeah, I know an American who did. Yeah, when he told me, I almost my teeth fell out. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that is what is it? Is it all the old carts that are going out of print going for this kind of money, or is it just specifically Technos at the
It's
moment?
just Technos.
Only Technos, really. Yeah, I haven't heard of any others at the minute, which is a shame because I've got about 200 of each of the rest of them. So.
I mean, it's got. I'm just looking at the games on the back, and all I can think of is it has to be because of Double Dragon. Surely it can't be for. I mean, the Super Volleyball game is good fun.
Yeah, I mean, River City Ransom's good fun as well. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we could just talk about this for the rest of the podcast. If I'm totally honest, I'm genuinely shocked by that. I mean, I can see people in the chat are obviously thinking that is a crazy amount of money. I mean, jinkies, would anyone?
The problem is you're getting collectors coming in late to the party, aren't you? So
Yeah.
if someone's only been drawn in by that Duke Nukem collection, for example, and they're like, oh, what's this? I've never heard of Evercade before. And then they see, and you know, they like collecting things and they see all the cartridges are numbered, then they're going to want to hoover them all up. And if you can't get number 10, that's going to make people want it even more.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to get a lot of that, I think, especially with Namco. They're going to be going soon, I believe, and then the Dizzy one as well, or Oliver Twins one as well.
Yeah, because I mean that's another one that I could see if that's how much this sort of thing's going for. That's of all of the cards. Actually, looking at the ones that I've got, I thought that would be the one that would become the collectible one, purely because it's the Oliver Twins. You know, it's got a lot of crackers on it. But yeah, I mean that's absolutely bananas. I mean, if we go through the games that are on it, and sort of discuss some of them, because there are some belters on there. I think we can kind of maybe surmise Double Dragon and Double Dragon 2 kind of together, because that is some 8-bit greatness there in terms of side-scrolling beat 'em ups. Double Dragon and Double Dragon 2 are real hard to beat. They're absolutely solid even today with, you know, original hardware on Evercade emulation. Doesn't matter how you're playing it. Those two games they're pretty nails. They're quite difficult as well. They've got a bit of challenge to them, as all original 8-bit games did have. But yeah, Double Dragon's like a real staple of side-scrolling beat 'em ups. I mean, what do you guys, Ryan? We'll run with you. Is Double Dragon something you enjoy?
Oh, I love Double Dragon. The soundtrack is brilliant on Double Dragon. I actually prefer the NES version over the arcade versions, because I know on the Technos arcade we've got Double Dragon 2 and 3. I would rather play Double Dragon 1 and 2 on the NES than either of those two arcade ports. I think the NES games are really stand the test of time. I think for games that were made in late 80s, early 90s, that they are very, very good. And there is a significant jump from 1 to 2, I think, in terms of the moves and the graphics. So yeah, and like you say, they are hard as nails. I think is it in 2 where you've got to do the jumps when the conveyor belts are moving? That's a bit of a pain in the arse. But no, they're very, very good, and I wouldn't mind seeing Double Dragon 3 NES version of that on a cartridge, or even the Game Boy versions of Double Dragon, because I think they're good as well. But whether we're going to get another Technos console cartridge, it doesn't look likely at the moment, because they would have continued this license, I assume. So yeah, they're good. Definitely worth the cartridge just for those two games, I would say.
Definitely agree. And Derek, you're seeing a lot of nodding there. Double Dragon, a big hit with you as well.
Oh yeah, I grew up with the franchise, and yeah, absolutely love it. The NES games tick all the boxes, as did the Master System version of Double Dragon. But yeah, the NES ones are instant pick up and play. It's very responsive. The hit detection's good, and yeah, I mean, it was as close back then as I could get to bringing the arcade into the home. And Yeah, as I say, even though we have the arcade versions, as Ryan said, of 2 and 3, to be honest, as I say, the NES version I do keep going back to, and I do really enjoy, and I find I can actually play the game through rather than with the arcade version, which, to be honest, I don't know quite what's lacking in it, but yeah, it just doesn't seem to give me any sort of nostalgic feel like I do with the NES version. So yeah, for me, it's a great one on the collection.
I think sometimes when something's limited by hardware, you kind of have to make up for it in other areas. So you kind of have to make the gameplay solid. It has to be, really phenomenal, and it has to run really good. And maybe that's what it is. Double Dragon arcade games are fun, but like you say, bringing that arcade experience into our homes when we were kids, popping in a Double Dragon cartridge. You didn't care that it didn't look like the arcade because you were playing Double Dragon at home on an NES, and it was solid. It was so good. Yeah, yeah, completely. As soon as you said bringing that arcade experience home for us, it really was that vibe about it, and
Well,
it's
being able to play 2 players simultaneously as well. That was a novelty back then, because you think Mario 1 or 3 or whatever, you had to take it in turns, didn't you? So
yep.
That was always different to a lot of games that were around that time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So while we're on the topic of Double Dragon, then, just because I can see Phantom Fiction jumping in there as well, Super Double Dragon, how do we feel on that? Because it's not a game that I ever had on the Super Nintendo. For some reason, by the time my Super Nintendo journey had started, I kind of just wasn't in a Double Dragon kind of place. Maybe that's because there were things like Final Fight and Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat had effectively taken over my life. So I just didn't really have a pull for something like Super Double Dragon. So when I got this cartridge, I was really excited to be playing that. So how do people feel about that one? We'll run to Derek on this one. Super Double Dragon, what's your take?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Yeah, I did have it for the Super Nintendo originally, but not this version, which is Return of Double Dragon. That Return of Double Dragon for me is the superior version of the two. Obviously, this time we've got an ending. All the music's there from the original one, but it's just put in a different order. It gives you options select, which you can select the difficulty this time, which I think is great for fans. So, if you don't want too high a difficulty. And of course, my favorite option of all with it is the special option where you can put your arm out and you can counter and do a throw. And I just think that's fantastic. I love that. Yeah, it's much better than attacking the foes. But this time you can actually block their maneuver and give them a little judo throw, and continue the action. And of course, all the weapons, the boomerangs and things like that. I mean, in the return version, you can recatch the boomerang, but obviously on the super version, once you've thrown it, you can't. So yeah, all the weapons, everything, it just makes it fantastic. I love the nunchucks as well, and all the settings that go with it is just fantastic. So yeah, for me, it's a huge plus, and something I think Evercade should have shouted about a lot more when this first launched. But yeah, easy to look back in hindsight, I guess. But yeah, for me,
yeah,
that is a massive one. Yeah.
Mr. Ryan, Super Double Dragon, what do you run with on that? Is it a big box ticker for you as well?
Yeah, I would say it's a significant jump up from 1 and 2. It's quite a nice paced game as well. It's not really fast. It's just quite a relaxing game, I find. The hit detection's good in it. It's not too difficult. You can, like Sir Top Hat was saying, you can block. The backgrounds of the levels are really nice, vibrant. It's just a very good game. And funny you should mention about Evercade not shouting about it. I've just re-looked. I've not got the cartridge box in front of me, but I've just re-looked on the website, and there's no mention of Super Double Dragon on the cover of the cartridge, on the cartridge case. If I can share it with you. Yeah. And
there's six carts on the front. It's right there as well. You can see it right there just before the screen covers it. Yeah. Got Double Dragon 2, Dodgeball. I've got my glasses there. Crash and the Boys, Volleyball, and River City Storm.
Ransom. River City Ransom.
It is Ransom. I said Storm, didn't I? That's how bad my eyesight is. Even with glasses on, I need to take my glasses off and do the old Yeah. Yeah, it kind of feels like it needed that Super Double Dragon sort of firmly in the middle, didn't it? Just to kind of, I mean, to be fair, they could have put all 8 images on the front of that without too many problems, I don't think. But yeah, certainly Super Double Dragon would have maybe pulled that in a bit more. Um, I completely agree with everything you guys have said. It was a game that I was really looking forward to because, like I say, it bypassed me when I was younger, and I kind of regret that it did because I'd have thoroughly enjoyed the hell out of it. I would have been playing it all the time. Um, it's I would say it's probably better than Batman Returns in terms of side-scrolling beat 'em ups on the Super Nintendo. And Batman Returns is really held up there for
It's
some reason.
great.
It's just it is really good, but I think Super Double Dragon's better. There's something about the way it plays and something about just the way everything feels. Like Batman's great, but it's very one note. And I don't know if maybe it's because you mentioned the blocking and the countering. Maybe it's because it's got a few extra bits in the fight system. Maybe that's what sort of keeps it fresh. So you're not just constantly jumping and pummeling. It's yeah, there's a little bit more of a thought process to it. It's a bit more like I guess the modern equivalent to me would be Final Vendetta. Something that's got a really good fight mechanic system in it.
I
Yeah,
read a
really.
really good article about Super Double Dragon in Retro Gamer. It must have been
Mhm.
like 2 or 3 years ago now, and about why it failed commercially because it came out at the same time as Streets of Rage, and I think it struggled to
Mm,
keep up. And is it Final Fight as well? Trying to keep up with those types of games because they were so big, and I think Double Dragon did have that market share and it just lost it. It must have been too big a gap between that coming out.
mhm.
So yeah, I think that's probably why the game doesn't get as many plaudits as what it should do.
Yeah. I mean, imagine releasing a side-scrolling beat 'em up at the same time as Streets of Rage and expecting it to be a fair fight. It's to coin a phrase. Streets of Rage was the Streets of Rage was cool. I think that's the thing that Streets of Rage just oozes. It is just a really cool game. The soundtrack is killer. Not that Super Double Dragon's soundtrack isn't, but do you know what I mean? Everybody remembers Streets of Rage for everything about it being just really cool. Everybody wanted to be those characters. So yeah, that's a good point. Good point there, Ryan. It probably struggled quite a lot. What are some of the other highlights from this one, Brian? What are some of the other highlights from this that you got?
It's certainly not crushing the boys. That's very, very, very tough game. Renegade again, really hard, but I know there's a cult following for Renegade. A lot of people like that game, but yeah, I find that very tricky. River City Ransom's very nice, and it's the same graphics as the Nintendo World Cup. That's what it
Mhm.
always reminds me of. When they used to do the overhead kicks and the balls would turn into like rocket, like balloons and fire. And used to love that game. So yeah, it reminds me of that. That's quite a good game. Super Dodgeball is hard.
Mhm.
It's not a game that I've put too much time into, but it looks very nice. And then
Mm.
Super Spike Volleyball again, yeah, it's okay. It's not a bad volleyball game. In terms of the volleyball games that we've got on the Evercade, it's one of the better ones, I would say. But yeah,
Mhm.
there's only 8 games on this cartridge. I thought there was more than that, but there is only 8.
There are only 8. It's I think someone in the chat has said, sometimes they pick some random games to go on these collections, but it's a fairly well-rounded collection. It's a lot of beat 'em ups. In fact, it's predominantly beat 'em ups. But that's fine because I like beat 'em ups. So that ticks a big box for me. Derek, what are some of the other highlights there? I know there was a big nod from you when Ryan mentioned a particular game there. So
Yeah, I mean, River City Ransom, I can hear the tune going in my head now. It's got that lovely tune that goes throughout it. And yeah, it's great. You can go to the different shops and acquire different power-ups and different foods for energy. And yeah, I mean, it's a great series of the sort of the crew Kun, as they call, and as Ryan said, the same characters appear again in Crash and the Boys. And if people are lucky enough to make it towards the end, there's a lovely fight level where you've got to fight the other person with a few sort of wrestling moves and sort of stomping on him and whatnot. And also it's the longest ending on Evercade, so it takes about 10 minutes for it to play out completely. And they sort of got waved off on. I don't want to spoil it too much from the airport, but yeah, it's definitely worth seeking it out just to see the ending. Dodgeball, yeah, I mean, if you've got friends around, this can be fantastic fun. And honestly, when you catch some corker shots on a pal and you see their little eyes pop out, and yeah, it's just fantastic. Yeah, so I do enjoy that, but yeah, as I say, it's more of a multiplayer one than against the computer. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth it and challenging if you're into dodgeball.
Mhm.
Renegade, of course, I'm a huge fan of. I love the Renegade series, and I've owned it on multiple consoles and computers over the years. A lot more easier to control than the Commodore 64 version, I can assure you. But yeah, fantastic. And yeah, I've got my own little techniques where I just cause them to duck. I run in, do a judo throw, and it works every time, and I never really take a hit. So yeah, it's fantastic. And again, it sort of harks back to the arcade. And I remember when I first saw Renegade in the arcade and all these sort of punk style characters standing around you. It's fantastic. And I mean, it spawned many a spin off on things like the Amstrad CPC 464, had things like Subway Vigilante and things like that, which are again basically a rip off of Renegade. But nonetheless, though, you can see how much it sort of inspired people to go forward and sort of what was a successful game, and still to this day, as you say, it's got quite a cult following. And whenever I visit a retro gaming club, I must admit it's always one you see there running. There's always some boffins there that are thoroughly enjoying it. So yeah, it's fantastic to see. And yeah, I mean, finally, yeah, Super Spike V-Ball. Over the years, I've had lots of volleyball games. I must admit, I think the last one I ever purchased was Beach Spikers on the GameCube, and that was pretty awesome. I absolutely love that. Sega seemed to have just make magic there. So yeah, if you have a GameCube, pick that up. But yeah, I mean, it all started with these type of games, and yeah, I had a couple on the Commodore 64, but yeah, nothing touches this NES version. It's just fantastic, and you can really get sort of locked into it and learning your various shots. And yeah, just try. I just want to get over the net one more time, especially if the computer scores a couple against me. I'm addicted. Then it's like a red rag to a bull, and I've just got to get those points back. So yeah, it can be a great deal of fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm glad that both of you sort of highlight Super Spike V-Ball because it's an NES classic for me. You know, even before you get into the gameplay, I just remember that cover artwork. Like it was everywhere. It was great. I remember seeing it in magazines, and it's just such a pinnacle of 8-bit gaming, that cover. And I love it. Again, maybe it goes back to the limitations. You've got 2 buttons and your D-pad, so make the game solid, make it work around it. I actually think it's an incredibly pretty game as well. I think it looks great. It looks like beach volleyball. Some of the sprites look a bit like wrestlers. Like they're gonna all of a sudden, I don't know any wrestling moves. Ryan, just to say a wrestling move, they're gonna pull out a.
I don't know, power bomb.
Okay, they're going to pull out a power bomb on you. I don't know what a power bomb is, but yeah, the sprites are great, the graphics are great, the soundtrack's cool, it's fun to play. Yeah, I mean, so for me, when I remember getting that all-in-one bundle with the first 10 cards and seeing on the back, missing things like Super Spike V-Ball, seeing that on there with the Double Dragon games and thinking, yeah, this is going to be a bit of me. I think I probably will dedicate more time to some of the other series that things like River City, because everyone in the chat seems to be very high praise on that. Also yourselves, Derek and Ryan, have both said that that's pretty good, so I think I'll need to go back into that a little bit more. Once I've finished up Elwa's Awakening, I'll come back and get into some of the River City stuff and see where that runs. Crazy Burger coming in there. Ollie Suplex.
It's not. That's not one word.
Bloody heck, Ollie Suplex.
Wow.
Yeah, I am. I'm feeling the hay fever today. My eyesight is really not great. Yeah, dude, crazy, John. I could maybe say the Stinger. Is that one? But that's a
That's
specific one to a wrestler. Is that right?
It is,
but
yeah,
that's a
right, Tom.
wrestler. Yeah, that's a wrestler himself, not a move.
No,
Didn't Stone Cold do us? Oh no, that was a stunner, wasn't
The
it?
Stinger. I wish he did do the Stinger.
Ah,
That would have.
yeah, the
man.
Stinger Splash. I suppose that's that.
Yeah.
Man, wrestling fans are just yelling now. What a moron! Yeah, sorry guys. I know dick about wrestling. Yeah, but yeah, all in all, from the first 10 carts, and that takes it literally up to number 10, right there on the spine. Number 10. If you got that as an all-in-one bundle, and you were going through the carts one by one, that's an incredible little cart to finish on. I still think it's a great cart. Even just sort of revisiting some of it before we for this week for this, I think it's great. Really enjoy that cartridge. And if you don't own it now and want it, oh dear, that's gonna cost you an absolute fortune. I'm still in absolute disbelief over that. That's insane.
It's definitely a cartridge. When I look at my collection and I'm like, oh, I fancy playing some Evercade. That Technos one is usually the one that I'll get out and put into my Evercade. I would say that, and maybe Xenocrisis. They've got that kind of pull factor of the cartridges, because like I know Double Dragon 2 is just so easy pick up and play that I don't even have to think about it. I can just crack on with it and try and progress through it.
Yep, without a doubt. Okie dokie. So how are we going to pick what cart we review in a couple of weeks' time? Or maybe not this time, maybe not 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks after that. So in a month's time, what cart are we going to go down?
Well, we've done Technos, we've done Oliver Twins. So I guess it'll be Namco 1. I can't remember if we've done Namco 1 and 2. I'll have to look back through the episodes, and then Pico as well we can do. So we've got some cartridges there. Whilst there's a little bit of a lull at the moment until the showcase at the end of July.
Okay. So people in the chat, from those ones that we've said there. So what did we say? That Namco 1. My mind is just not firing on all cylinders, is it today?
It's Namco 1 and 2.
Yep.
And Pico 1.
And Pico 1. Okay, so from out of those three, people in the chat, pick the one that you want us to chat about next, and we shall do that. Okie dokie. So there's a couple of starred chats here. So let's go to John Parton. We've got an NWO tag. So again, I apologize for just butchering wrestling there for you, John. I apologize. John do you think there's any chance of seeing the first 3 Mortal Kombat games on Evercade? I will run first and let everybody else jump in on this one, because I did see this in the chat earlier. Given the showcase announcement that we had a couple of weeks ago now, I'm kind of like, anything is possible. That's genuinely where my head is at now. I think anything is possible. If I had to bet money on it, I would say probably not. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen. The fact that they've got Duke Nukem 3D, Duke Nukem 1 and 2, which, as Derek informed us that time, it's been completely remastered from the ground up. Man, anything's possible. So I wouldn't write anything like that out for Blaze anymore at all, especially if these Duke Nukem carts do well, and it sort of really catapults it forward that little bit more that we kind of want it to. Why not? Mortal Kombat. I mean, we've got Street Fighter 2 on the Evercade, so yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm kind of almost contradicting myself now. Would I? Yeah, fuck it. Why not? Everybody else, how's everybody else think? What do you think? What are the chances?
I wouldn't even like to guess. I guess anything's possible, but isn't Mortal Kombat a brand new one coming out on the PlayStation and Xbox and other Steam, I guess. So whether it would be difficult to even get a meeting with the people who hold the Mortal Kombat licenses nowadays.
Mm.
I guess it would be pretty tricky. Mortal Kombat's huge, isn't it? It's got films out. I wouldn't say it would be easy. I imagine it would be very difficult.
Mm. Yeah, I think Warner Brothers own it, don't they? So yeah, would be difficult, but I don't know. But Derek, what do you think?
Yeah, I love the Mortal Kombat series. I had them originally on the Mega Drive 1 and 2. I had the trilogy on PlayStation, which was pretty awesome. I had one on the Sega Saturn. I even had a couple on the Game Boy. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the Mortal Kombat series. Basically, it comes down to cash. If we keep doing our bit, which is buying those cartridges, down the line, I wouldn't think it'd be unrealistic to certainly get those 3. But right now, yeah, you're talking a lot of Wonga. So yeah, if they're going to go forward and make a pitch for those, I think yeah, they need to go all guns loaded. But yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Okie dokie. So let's go to Obsolete Worlds. Has a question there. I'd like to know the panel's thoughts on if the current firmware update should have been taken down once they identified it was breaking games. It's still up after 2 weeks. Why not pull it until it's fixed? I guess if it's one particular cartridge that it's bugging out, and it's maybe improved a couple of other things that people have maybe been wanting. Is it weighing that up? You know, I don't know. Like I say, I don't have the C64 cart, so it doesn't affect me at all, which is not the nicest of attitudes to have. But it kind of doesn't. Don't know. It's difficult.
I think if they knew that it was causing problems for people, they should have pulled it. If it was easy to stop it, updating people's I know people have to manually go in and click on accept the update, but if they knew it was causing issues for people, because like we were saying earlier, if that C64 collection is someone's favorite and they've gone out and brought a VS, got home, updated it, put that C64 collection in, and it's not working, then it's not a great start, is it, to your Evercade journey? So I personally think if there was an issue and they were able to pull it, then they should have done.
Okay. Fairly good answer. Mr. Derek, how do you feel?
We live in the modern era of social media. Would it really be too much to ask that if they didn't want to pull it, they could have perhaps done a tweet, done a Facebook post, just warned people ahead of time that if you do put it in, this is what you might experience. If you do this, at least people have a choice. But if you want to stay silent and, and say, oh, well, we might have said something on Discord. Well, if you haven't got Discord, you've only got Facebook, or you've only got Twitter, or you've only got Instagram. What are your chances of finding out? We're only talking about a sentence here. You don't have to write your life memoirs. So yeah, if you don't want to pull it, at least inform people. At least let people make an impartial choice themselves. Whether, as you say, they want to go forward because perhaps they haven't got the C64 collection. So they can go ahead and play the indie game of the month and the other games, as far as I'm aware, then unaffected. But yeah, if they have and they're halfway through that games collection, then perhaps they don't want to make that update just yet. They're going to wait for the fix. But yeah, in the age of modern day, when you can make it in seconds, a little something, I don't see why they didn't.
Yeah. Hopefully that gives you a broad spectrum of opinion that we have here. And then Mr. John Crazyburger throwing in a question here. Does it bother you guys that Flashback isn't Amiga on a blue collection? Personally, doesn't bother me at all. Apparently, the Mega Drive version is better anyway. It's a bit of a shame that it's an Amiga collection and it doesn't have the Amiga version on it. I'd like to know, but then never having an Amiga, I don't know what the differences are between the Amiga and the Mega Drive version anyway. If anyone in the chat knows, throw up the differences in there. I guess personally for me, no, not particularly. I know there'll be some diehards out there that it maybe will annoy, maybe. But yeah, certainly for me, I can't say that it ruins the experience or ruins the the aesthetic of what it is. Derek, what do you think?
I'm delighted to get Flashback. It's one of my favorites. As Ryan knows, I had it on the Mega Drive years ago. So it's a lot easier to control. They actually made the Mega Drive version before they made the Amiga version. It's a lot easier to control with the 3 buttons, especially with the little step you do, and also the little, what I call the Prince of Persia jump, and the climbing and getting your gun out and things like that. So yeah, for me, that makes sense. It does seem odd that you've got an Amiga collection though, and a Mega Drive game. I'd rather that kind of came on a mixed selection, and you kept it strictly to Amiga. Because obviously somebody buying that in a shop would just see the front, they see it's Amiga, and then obviously they'll go home and find out it's the Mega Drive version. But as long as I get to play Flashback, that's what matters to me. Yeah, I'm a big Flashback fan. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on it. But yeah, it's, as I say, it does seem an unusual choice in a way, but in the same breath, it does actually play a lot easier than having a joystick with 1 button. And I can assure you, trying to do all the different controls can be very, very tricky on the Amiga. So yeah, I think it was the wise choice. But yeah, as you say, it does seem a strange choice.
Yeah. Ryan, does it bother you too much?
I'm certainly not going to lose any sleep over it, put it that way. I'm not going to let it ruin my gaming experience. But yeah, I've just had a look at the cartridge cover again, and it clearly says on there Amiga. And if you're massively into Amiga and you think, brilliant, that's going to be on a cartridge, you would assume it's going to be the Amiga version, wouldn't you? So yeah, they need to do something to let people know that it's not all Amiga games on there. I know they possibly said it in Discord, but you know, from someone who doesn't really use Discord, I'm hearing this like secondhand from other people. And someone walking into a shop is not going to know that, are they? So I personally think they need to put something on the cartridge case somewhere, like Amiga brackets, you know, Mega Drive version of whatever on there as well.
So yeah, but like John says there, would everyone playing it realize it's not Amiga without prior knowledge? I think I would need to. In fact, what I'm going to do is once the stream's done, is I'm actually going to go and have a look at the Amiga port of Flashback and see what it runs like, see what it looks like, and then fire up the Mega Drive one and actually see if there's any differences. Because if there is,
yeah, I think the map's slightly different. Yeah,
is
sort
it?
of level layout, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So there might be yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, like, I think we all agree, don't we? It's not a big one. Doesn't ruin the fact that it's there, because it's still a great game. And you know, like Derek says, and even John says there, it's technically actually meant to be the better version. But yeah, just a bit strange that you'd sort of advertise Amiga and it not be the Amiga port on there. So yeah, interesting stuff. Okie dokie, chaps. That is us at our hour. We are 2 minutes over the hour. And considering there was no major news, there was quite a lot to talk about. So yeah, thank you very much for making this a very enjoyable episode. And thank you everyone in the chat and everyone that's been watching live. You've also made this an incredibly fun episode. It's lovely seeing so many people in the chat and quite a few new names in the chat as well. Really some great back and forth, some great interactions in there. So thank you so much for joining us live. If you are new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button and giving that thumbs up button a little push as well, just so that we know that you've been here. It helps us out a lot. And for anyone that is new, also, the Total Evercade podcast is fortnightly. So we will be returning a week today. No, a week next week. Fucking hell. There we go. It's after the watershed. I can swear. Okay. We're fine. Jesus, I managed to keep it in until 6 minutes past 9 before I dropped an F-bomb. Yeah, apologies. My brain is not firing on all cylinders today. We will return in 2 weeks, hopefully with a guest of honor. And if we can get it all firmed up and in, we will let everybody know in the Evercade Hangout on Facebook. We will let everybody know there that it's happening, and we'll let you know how you guys can get involved. So yes, Crazy Burger, I will learn some wrestling moves for the next one. And oh damn, I'll have to put it on the next one. I did some AI pictures based on the last one as well for people. I did some Dizzy Egg ones and some Sonic the Hedgehog ones that people asked for. So I'll fire those up for the next one as well. So, yeah, just thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time. So good evening, everybody.